Hi everyone, we're back on the Power 365 show. ISVs, listen up. Ever wondered what makes a top 100 ISV? Well, we're going to empower you during this episode and give you the insights you need to become a part of the top 100. Oh, and we'll explore the secrets of the dev centers. What are they? How do they apply, etc.? How can you tap into them? Here it is now from David Pennington, who leads the efforts around strategic global ISVs and SI relationships with Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform. Full show notes, and there's going to be a lot of them here in this episode. Go to nz365guide.com/95. Now, let's get on with the show. Hi, David. Welcome to the Power 365 show.
Hey, Mark. How you doing? Great to be here, and thanks for inviting me on the Power 365 show.
Excellent. So good to have you on. I've known you since 2012, I think, was when I first met you, and it was Craig, that another Kiwi, guy working in the product team. I remember him taking me down the hallway and into your office and introducing me to you. And you actually, a little thing you did at that point had a bit of an impact on me, and you were like, what was your company name? And I said Magnetism, which is a company that I had in New Zealand at the time. And you typed in magnetism.com. And I just realized then in my mind, I was like, you always got to have a .com name for a company name, because that's the default people go to. How's that?
I actually remember that. Yep.
So, wow, we're 7-8 years on now. And which is interesting, because there's not many people that I come across that's still in the the Microsoft BizApps ecosystem that have been around for that period of time. I think top of mind, only about 5 people come to mind.
Yeah. No, it's been a journey. I've been in the Dynamics business for 12 years, and actually the enterprise business application space for 22 plus years. But yeah, my whole journey at Microsoft's been in Dynamics, or the business application group, and it's been an amazing journey, tremendous growth, and it's amazing to see where we're at today, where we really have extraction of the applications from the platform and built the amazing ecosystem of ISVs and SIs, driving amazing business results, where 12 years ago we were relatively small and just getting started from a platform perspective to where we're at today.
Yeah, so true, so true. Listen, before we start, a bit of a discussion around, your role and particularly the ISV side of things, can you tell us a bit about, where you live, life, hobbies, family, that type of thing, what you do when you're kind of not got your Microsoft hat on?
Yeah, most of the time these days I've got my Microsoft hat on, but I do have a personal life, and I live here at headquarters here in Redmond, Washington. My house is actually in the foothills up in Issaquah. It's a pretty cool area where it's about, 35 minutes up from, where you can ski and snowboard, and it's about another 20 minutes out to the Puget Sound and the lake. So we kind of get a lot of outdoor activities, and before I had kids, my hobbies used to be around snowboarding, be out on the water, and be real active with running and things like that. But now with a parent of 2 boys and a wonderful wife, my oldest is a teenager, so most of my free time these days is spent, watching their sports on the weekend, basketball, baseball, and football, and coaching their sports. But I do every now and again mix in a little round of golf. Nice.
So what do they do for sports that you're coaching?
I coach my youngest son in baseball. I used to coach both of them, but got a little busy with my schedule, and now my oldest is on to professional coaches. He's not a professional, but they're paid coaches now. But I coach baseball, and everything else, I'm now just a dad in the stands watching, cheering them on.
Cheering them on. So do you have a handicap for your golf?
Yeah, really every part is bad, these days.
I've never heard that as a response to the handicap. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's well done.
I'm pretty well handicapped across the board. No, but I really enjoy it. I don't get out as much as I'd like. I guess I would probably play at a 17 or 18 these days, but I enjoy it.
Nice. I spent a period of time, and I played golf once a week for I think about 18 months, and then I've pretty much not played it since, because I found that I was on the course and I was always counting down to the end hole, and then I was like, do you know what, you're not really enjoying this. Perhaps it's not for you.
It's a good way to
Yeah.
play, not worrying about the score and just enjoying the outside. As I've gotten older and I play less and less, the times you do get out and enjoy the outdoors, especially in the Pacific Northwest, in the summertime, it's just nice to get out in the sun.
Yeah, I bet, I bet. Tell me about your career journey, particularly like some career highlights that you've experienced while being in the business applications team.
Yeah, gosh. Well, my career journey, I won't spend too much time on it, but out of school, I spent some time at IBM. And then after 3 or 4 years of that, I got a chance to join a startup. And as a pretty young person and got to be their first product manager, and we drove a pretty successful business. I was, I think, the 10th person hired, and it's here in Seattle is around call center software and around workforce management stuff, which I really enjoyed. And after about 7, 8 years there, I joined Microsoft. That company was a partner of Microsoft, and so I've spent all my 12 years in Microsoft in the dynamic space, and it's interesting because I've had a pretty interesting journey where I haven't just been in one part of the business. I actually joined in the services function at that time. Our SaaS business was nascent; it was just starting. This was, I started in 2007, roughly 2006. And we were just building, CRM 2011 at that time. And I had the role to build the first service offerings for our CRM Online business. And what that meant is, how are we going to support, SaaS-based customers from a support perspective, and what programs and services would we provide our end customers? And I also at that time supported our ERP product lines at that time. So it was all around our support offerings, our enhancement plans, maintenance plans. So I managed all that. And then I got to move into more of a product marketing role. I wanted to, move my career more to a focus on the cloud. So I moved on to the CRM marketing team and held various roles in product launches and then I got into call center, our customer service product management. But still back in those days, our applications were so intertwined with the platform that when you purchased the CRM product, you got all of our apps because we didn't have an extraction of the apps to the platform. And then I got the opportunity to come over to the engineering side and actually start to work on our strategy around acquisitions because we had a lot of gaps to fill as a part of our first party apps in order to
Yeah, yeah.
compete with Salesforce and others. So that was back in the time when we did some of our acquisitions around Marketing Pilot, which is now our marketing automation solution, NetBreeze, some of the social listening things, and Parature. And so that was a fun journey. And then I spent the next 5 years as chief of staff for three corporate vice presidents in engineering, ending with some work I did with our current corporate vice president, James Phillips. And so that was interesting. It's probably a longer tenure at a chief of staff than most people do at Microsoft, but it was certainly enlightening. And then I got back to what I really cared about, what I really wanted to do, which is, focusing on building our ecosystem and building the power of the platform. The platform isn't powerful if you can't bring, a variety of ISVs to want to come and build on the platform. So James asked me in engineering to build a team that would help promote the Power Platform, help develop tools and frictionless onboarding for ISVs. And so that's really what my team does today. We focus on two areas. One, we focus on breadth ISVs. So making sure that you can get the tools, the training, the readiness you need in our web experiences, helping build community, and then making sure that getting that information, building your app, onboarding onto AppSource, and certifying your app is an easy process. And I know it always hasn't been, but I hope what you see today, we've done a lot of work in that area. And so my team has that as one part of our charter. The other part of our charter is really focusing on making 100 ISVs wildly successful, so the masses, the thousands, want to be one of the 100. So it's with a high touch solution architects, PMs guiding, some of those top ISVs to be successful as they onboard onto the platform. And then more recently, I'm hoping I'm not taking away from too much of our other questions. It's really around building tools like accelerators, and I think you had Smith Codio talk a little bit about some of the accelerators. But it's building a way for ISVs to come build industry solutions in a more accelerated fashion for them to lower costs for ISVs to onboard to the platform.
Yeah, so good, so good. So obviously, a lot is happening in this whole iOS ISV eco system, if you like, and in this space, which is really exciting because In my experience of being involved with the technology for a long time, there was a period where it became very app focused, and now we're seeing that the app separation, as you've talked about in the last 18 months, and which gives a massive opportunity to ISVs out there to build line of business applications. So first off, what is the kind of measuring stick when defining a top ISV from your point of view?
Yeah, and I first wanted to address the comment about focus on apps to a focus on platform.
Yeah.
Uh, so I will say that our first party apps are really critical and important to our overall business strategy. But it's also a way, how we can show the power of the platform. Because today, once an ISV looks at what's possible to build on the platform, well, our first party apps are an example of what's possible to build on the platform. It's the perfect example of what can be built. And sometimes they use the analogy that, when Microsoft started in the, hardware business, with laptops and building the Surface, it was to show the power of what's possible with Windows. When there was this time when, Apple came out with other form factors and devices, and we wanted to press the other hardware manufacturers to show what's possible. And that's one thing that Surface did for us. And we continue to have a successful hardware and Surface business today. Our first party apps are that same way, and we're providing tons of value for our enterprise customers, but leaving tons of space for our ISVs to innovate between the applications, on top of the applications, and net new applications. But yes, what you'll see, moving forward is continuing to double down and make big investments in the platform to not only serve our first party apps, but also, creating net new applications that never existed before, right? And also creating more relevance in specific industries. And we've communicated, look, that we're not going to build deep industry verticals. That's really not what we are. Microsoft's a platform company. And while we do have amazing applications and first party SaaS apps like Office, like Dynamics, sales, service, marketing, operations, talent, finance, we're innovating a lot there. But as we move forward, you will see us, focus our attention on building a world-class platform that every ISV wants to come build on because it's both economical and also from a pure stack perspective. If you look at everything from the IaaS to the APaaS to the SaaS layer, we give you a lot more options on where you want to start your business process or business application, and then we stitch all those pieces together, all of the Azure services, the cognitive services, the AI, and then providing you citizen developer tools or pro dev tools to go do what you need to do in an economical way. Second,
I
you
like
asked
it.
about, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. About the
Yeah,
top ISVs. Yeah.
yeah, about the top ISVs. So the way that we look at top ISVs, and it's not saying that one ISV is different or better than another. We want to welcome all ISVs, and we will develop content and develop the platform for brand new startup ISVs, established ISVs that have there are companies that have been around for 100 years that have built client server applications and are still migrating because of the industry they're in to the cloud. But what I would say that what we're trying to do is for those certain type of ISVs that are market leading or market making, right? There's new markets emerging and things happening around digital transformation. We're looking at kind of the largest companies in the world that are looking to innovate within their particular space. We're looking at industries that are growing rapidly and are investing in digital transformation, and we're making big bets there. And we're trying to identify, there are some that will be existing ISVs today that drive revenue and that are growing quickly in their market. We're looking for people that are making bets on the Microsoft stack, right? If you're an ISV that plays Switzerland in a manner and just says, hey, we work with any cloud business vendor, and we just want to get access to your install base. While that's interesting and we want to help them, they may not be one that we deeply invest in terms of dedicated high touch resources. But those that are willing to commit to the platform, commit to the Power Platform in Azure and leverage the Microsoft technologies, that's who we're trying to identify as ones that we want to also deeply invest in.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. This is great stuff. So what patterns are you seeing in very successful ISVs? And I'm not talking about just the adoption of the technology. What about things like business model? What do you see they do effectively about their go-to-market? What's your view?
Yeah, so the most successful ISVs I've seen really focus on their own unique IP. Whether it's industry specific, whether it's horizontal applications that extend the power of the platform. And what I mean by this is that, if you're building a patient engagement application in health, why worry about, building things like case management, security models, special views? Let the platform handle that so you can focus on that valuable IP and that valuable investments that you're making in your engineering, and focus on the thing that makes you truly unique. And I'd also say from a commercial standpoint, it's important to understand how to leverage the different licensing programs based on the engineering decisions that you make. There are things that can take advantage if you're not going to, I don't want to get deeply technical on the platform stack, but if you're not going to, as you develop what your scenario is, if it's not going to be leveraging too much of the, restricted entities or whatnot, there are options around P1 and P2 that allow you to build your solution in the same fashion we build our first party apps and also have a viable commercial model. To go forward with. So I think it's both as you understand what the platform can do, you identify the scenarios that you want to support, you leverage the best of the platform so you don't have to worry about maintaining and building all the things that the Power Platform in Azure can take care of for you, and you focus on your industry solution. I think that's what's critical, and then understanding how you're going to go to market to make sure that your COGS and the costs that you're paying for the licenses that you use are optimized to fit your go-to-market. And then also, once you identify that, it's how do I best want to go to market? Do I want to go to market direct with an SI, with Microsoft? Do I want to go after the install base, or do I want to go after net new? All of those decisions that you make would also influence on how potentially you build. If you want to go net new, you want to co-sell with Microsoft, you have to understand what incents Microsoft sellers. And so, there are things that it pulls through that Microsoft sellers care about, that they get paid for, that they get quota retirement for. So the more things you wrap around that drives behavior in our field will then drive success on how you want to go to market along with Microsoft. But it doesn't also mean that, hey, I've got to design a way to sell Microsoft licenses in order, for Microsoft to care. I may be a Connect partner and just want access because I'm running into a lot of Microsoft Dynamics customers or Power Platform customers, but I want to connect into the solution so they know that my solution is viable and can be, downloaded from AppSource. And so all of them are goodness. Not one is better than another. It's just options based on how you want to go to market.
Yeah, interesting. Because, I kind of see there's two separations in the type of ISVs out there. And one of them, I'd even hesitate to say that perhaps I wouldn't call them an ISV, they're a publisher. So, they've come up with an idea, they've chucked an app up in the app source, that type of thing, and they expect all of a sudden, they've watched a movie, build it and they'll come, and they expect all of a sudden a deluge of sales, and it doesn't necessarily happen. I feel they haven't put a business model behind what they've done. They've been opportunistic, if you like, and throwing some IP into AppSource, where I feel a true ISV looks at the holistic business model much more broadly and look at, how they go to market, how they sell the product, how they even smarter around licensing, if you like, because I've seen a lot of ISV solutions that put an exorbitant price on it that is compared with, if you like, Microsoft's sale price of whatever the core CALs are associated with it. And I think there's, a lot of them are not thinking about the whole business model around being an ISV.
Absolutely, Mark. You hit the nail on the head. And I'd also say, and I talk to ISVs every day of the week. I'm meeting with many ISVs, and a lot of them are new. Some of them are coming from competing platforms. Some of them are, assessing building natively on Azure or looking at the APaaS of the Power Platform built on Azure. And one of the first things that they always ask is, they say, hey, we want to understand what the platform can do, but we also want to we want to understand how we can co-sell and get co-marketing from Microsoft. But then they're not yet committed to either move to Azure or the Power Platform. And that's where the discussion is really, about around what really incents some of the field and the marketing to go ahead and drive connections, because our field's not going to want to pull ISVs in necessarily if they could pull us into a competitive situation. So I think I think you're absolutely right.
Nice, nice. No, tell me what type of tools Microsoft either have available now or creating to really enable ISVs in their journey to the Power Platform.
Yes, there's a bunch of innovative and things that we're on, especially my team is creating around the Power Platform, and also there's Charles Lamana's team who's building tons of tools. Really, for us, we have a lot of the tools and a lot of the training that can always get better. But for us, it's really about surfacing those tools to the ISVs so it's easy to find, easy to consume, and then easy to act on. So we are building out. We have an investment plan and building additional content and training, and maybe post this call, Mark, I have a bunch of links to provide
Fantastic.
you.
Yeah,
And
that'll
one
be
of the
good.
things that I wanted to identify though today, there is a new web experience that you can go to. So if you go to dynamics@microsoft.com, or you can get there through Microsoft if you find Dynamics, and if you hit the partner tab, there's a brand new tab up there that once you click on it and it says become a partner, it'll identify the different types of partners that you can be. It'll provide the value proposition, and then it'll explain that we have today a taxonomy where we identify three different types of ISV. There's a build ISV, there's an extend ISV, and there's a connect ISV. And it describes each of them along with links on how to get started in each, how to build, access to APIs, training, a bunch of information. And that's one of the areas where I mentioned, we had a lot of materials. It was dispersed all over the place. And now we're trying to build a guided experience for ISVs to easily find the most current information to allow them to make the best decisions about becoming a partner, what type of partner they want to be, and how to get started. And so you'll see those things coming out. The other thing I would highlight, Mark, is the accelerators that we're putting in market today. And so one of the things that we identified, and you had asked, earlier a little bit about the different types of ISVs, and do people, and I know we might get into a discussion around horizontal or vertical, but today Microsoft has alignment in sales and marketing around prioritized industries, and so there's a lot of questions around how do I come in and build my industry vertical, and do I have to come into the CDS, and do I have to build out the data model myself? So today what we're doing is we're building industry data models that map to industry standards. So out of the box, our Power Platform is relevant for certain industries. We've built one today or already for healthcare that's out, and you can learn about that through the Become a Partner page or through the Common Data Model page or our industry pages. We've also released the non-for-profit. We've also released the education specifically aimed at higher education. And then we also have the automotive one that's releasing in April. And we have a whole list that will be coming down the pipe as well. And if ISVs are interested in joining or learning more, they can not only go out to our web properties, but there's also a web page through that portal and that web experience where you can say, hey, I want to learn more about a new industry, and I want to get as a part of it and learn more about when the next accelerator is going to come out. So you can enter your details in there and say you want to be a part of it as we build these things out and we release them. And so this will help ISVs that are going into health, for example, and they don't have to go build a new data model. It's out on GitHub, it's out on AppSource, and you can get it today and use it today.
Yeah, yeah. Massive time saver, right? Massive time saver for ISVs. Can you just unpack for me build, connect, and extend? They're kind of three distinct categories, and ISVs could really sit in any of those threes. Can you explain each one for me?
Sure. I'm going to do things in a very simple way on these build, connect, extend. Over the years, we've used different terminology, but I think this is the best way that we've come out to classify ISVs. Now, one thing to be clear on, an ISV can be all three of these. An ISV can be two of these. But primarily what we're trying to talk about when we talk about build is those ISVs that don't want to take a dependency on Microsoft first-party apps. So like a Dynamics 365 app, sales, service, marketing, operations, talent, finance. If you don't want to take a dependency and you want to build with P1 or P2 directly on the Power Platform, that's what we consider a build example. An extend example is one in which, like I mentioned earlier and gave the healthcare example, and let's say I want to use the accelerator and I want to leverage case management because I don't want to go build case management. I'm doing a patient engagement system and maybe I'm doing a niche thing on top of that. I don't want to have to maintain and build that code over time. I want to leverage what Microsoft's already built there. That's what we consider extending. You're extending the entity model. You're taking a dependency on the customer service SaaS app along with the Power Platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Connect, sorry, can you break down Connect for me?
Yep. And Connect is one where let's say that you're directly just connecting to an API or you're wiring an iframe, but it's just a API connection. You're not taking a dependency on the platform necessarily or extending an application. It's simply, and this is the lowest bar to entry, what I'd say. And a lot of ISVs that first come to me and say, hey, I want to crawl, walk, run. We have an application today. We'd love to get it, into the hands of Dynamics customers. We'd like to say we're integrated. We have plans over time to come and build net new scenarios on the Power Platform. That's where I'd say the crawl, walk, run. Certainly, we'd love everybody to see the power of the platform, but we understand it takes investments. And if smaller ISVs or startups have already started down a path, tomorrow they don't have to go re-platform everything. Sure, I'd love to help them do that, but I think being practical, there is a natural path that they could get there. Just knowing at different points, whether it's connect, whether it's build or extend, you might get various levels of support from Microsoft or the field.
Yeah, makes sense. So if I looked at examples in that space, what jumps to mind for me is Connect would be something like a Twilio integration. Extend in my mind would be something like MapTasker up in AppSource there. And then a build scenario, I suppose, would be, what I've seen with Rapid Start, where, a full application built directly on the Power Platform. Do you have any other examples of kind of companies that people may have heard of that are kind of in one of these three categories?
Sure. I mean, Extend Click Dimensions is one of our great Extend partners that have extended marketing automation. We've had Extend with Campus Management, which is one of the largest student information system vendors who are now extending actually most of the first party apps. Indegene is a life sciences company that competes with Viva. They've extended the customer service and the sales app and the marketing app. They also do build scenarios as well. If you look at pure, build ISVs, and this is relatively new, by the way. I mean, those of you that have worked with the Power Platform and P1 and P2, this is where we see the largest area of growth. But companies, interesting companies like Simple and AdV are ones that have built, more of the marketing resource management, MRM, and ad agency capabilities. But I would tell you most of the extend today are also build, right? They go and extend a certain scenario and then they want to build a net new business process that doesn't require a dependency on a first party app, and then they go build. And so I would say that, our legacy has really been around the extend because, as I mentioned before, we had a lot of dependencies on our first party apps in the platform. And as we've now extracted those with the Power Platform tools like Power Apps, Flow, and leveraging Power BI, now people are saying, hey, I don't have to take a dependency on the first party app. I'm building a scenario that actually leverages mostly the non-restricted entities. So I'm just going to go build net new scenarios. And this is where we see the largest area of growth.
Yeah. Awesome. So just give me a gut kind of feel here. What do you see the split of ISVs between these categories? Do you see one dominant more than the other, perhaps Extend because it's been around the longest?
Yeah,
and then kind of where do you see the white space?
Yep. So Extend, of course, is the largest. I think if you see most of the apps that connect into the Power Platform or the customer engagement system or, the F&O in the past has really been around, extending the apps. So it's probably 70-80% of our legacy. Now, a lot of those scenarios that used to be Extend are now starting to migrate more to the build element. But as I mentioned, we see most of it on build, but it's a much smaller percentage. but the highest growth. And Connect has probably stayed equivalent. It's probably about 10 to 20% of the apps out there, maybe a little bit larger. I'd have to check that. But certainly Extend is where our roots have been. It's almost like if you looked at in the past, moving from cloud to SaaS. There was a time when we were 90% on-prem and 10% cloud, and now today we're 80% cloud and 20% on-prem, something like that. But the large majority are cloud. I would say that this doesn't mean to diminish Extend. Extend plays a critical role for a lot of ISVs and into the future. It just means that we'll see more and more ISVs choose, because of the economical purposes of building natively on the platform. We're just seeing tremendous growth on the build side.
Wow, that's so good. Can you explain the difference between vertical and horizontal solutions, and why I know there's a kind of, to some degree, there can be a gray area, but my perception is that if you want to sell through partners as an ISV, horizontal's the way to go. So in other words, you're not adding any services in, but if you've really got it's harder for another partner or an SI, shall we say, sell vertical, because vertical generally comes with, you need a bunch or a group of people that have deep, what would I say, subject matter expertise in the vertical, right? So let's say you're doing a solution that was aimed at nurses, right? You'd need to understand the challenges, what the product solves in that industry, and you're not going to get an SI that kind of is a jack of all trades, does Dynamics implementations, then be able to all of a sudden have deep knowledge around how nurses, a solution for nurses. What's your view on vertical and horizontal?
Yeah, so horizontal solutions, an example is mobile solutions, or it could be communication type things. It could be omni-channel capabilities within customer service and sales. It could be inside sales type solutions. It's broadly applicable across all sales organizations, and there's a broad market for those things. When I typically think of vertical, I really think of industry, and industries, we're kind of prioritized around, our key prioritized industries. But under those major industries, like if you look at financial services, there's a whole host of micro verticals under those, from retail to commercial to private wealth management to insurance. And so, as an ISV, as you build into those particular verticals, you can be a lot more successful in ways because there's not a lot of competition as you go down the micro vertical path. Now, you're right that SIs aren't necessarily going to be super micro vertical focused, but many of the SIs today have global practices around certain industries, whether it's oil and gas, telco,
Correct.
financial services. And so I think as you evolve yourself more, and global SIs are going to focus on enterprise, but as you build solutions vertically and for particular industries, you want to talk to the practice leads at the SIs, because they do have industry expertise. Now, they may not go into the niche vertical of like where you mentioned patient check-in or nurse management or things like that. But again, I think we're trying to work with our ISVs to go vertical because, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're a platform company. We are going to continue to build broad horizontal, customer engagement and F&O capabilities across our platform stack with our first-party apps. And when I had ISVs in the past come to me and say, "Hey, we're more of a horizontal today. Is Microsoft, what's the roadmap? Are they going down this? Am I going to find myself competing with them in the future?" And if you're going after, the CMO, I would say that oftentimes I can't say that, down the road, we're not going to build certain things because that is a target of one of our marketing apps. But if you go down a particular industry like financial services and you're doing retail banking, that's not an area that, we're building industry IP. We're building accelerators to help bring ISVs to come build. But again, we're not going down that last mile and helping develop IP deep for the financial services market. We still want horizontal solutions, and there's still tons of horizontal solutions for sales, service, marketing, finance and operations and talent, that cut across those, and those are still viable. It just, and they have actually a larger audience, but in terms of pinpointing, going to an SI, going deep, and knowing that, Microsoft or other larger companies aren't going to go into that vertical, your best bet is to look vertical in industry.
Mm-mm. So, one of the things I've been speaking a bit about lately is that Dynamics 365 is dead. And I follow then, after a pause, of course, with Long Live the Power Platform. And I feel that there's a lot of people, perhaps from the traditional side of the ecosystem, they haven't really understood the Power Platform and the app separation that happened in the last 18 months. And that, if there's not really a need to have a dependency on a Dynamics 365 product that you can build directly on the Power Platform, do you see the future in the next, 18 months as quite a pivot to where people are going to they're going to start with, CDS and build their dedicated applications at that layer?
Yeah, so it's a good question. First, I wouldn't say Dynamics 365 is dead. It plays a critical and
it's for shock, right?
Yeah, yes, no, I get it. And there have been analysts and pundits that said CRM is dead, and yes, the terminology of it is dead, and the way it was applied in the past, and how CRM had failed many different times in the past. Those components are dead. And the way we think about Dynamics 365 are extremely powerful business process applications that if you have a business challenge that you need to go solve for, what do people do? They go out and they say, is there an app to help solve my problem, which is the start of digital transformation? Yes, I have a patient engagement problem, yes, there are ISVs out there, but if I have a sales app problem, I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at all the competitors in the space, but I'm going to find an app for that. The value that we bring is not only do we have an app for that, we have the extensibility of that app for that, because no app is ever going to meet all of the needs of the end customer. Every customer is unique and their business is unique. They want to know that they have the ability to either build, extend, customize from a business administrator level, as well as they have the capability to go deep into the pro dev tooling. And that's what the power of the platform is. But the apps are critically important. Not only it shows the power of the platform and what it can do, but they're extremely effective in helping in digital transformation. You're right, however, that we only gave that option in the past, right? So now we're opening up a whole bunch of new opportunities for ISVs to say, I don't want to have to take a dependency on a first-party app that starts at X number of dollars that potentially will make me uncompetitive in my particular industry. Now we're giving them the option to go directly to the Power Platform, build net new scenarios with Power Apps and citizen developer tools or leverage pro dev tooling to go build whatever business process you want, whether no matter how small or how large as an enterprise application. I now have that power the same way Microsoft does to build our first party apps. I just see, because of the more options, there was only one way to do it in the past. Now there's many different ways and many different options and many different price points that allow you to be effective in your industry. So that's why we're seeing the larger area of growth on the Power Platform versus solely just extending the first party apps.
Yeah. So I'm just going to chuck an off-topic question that was posed to me today. Well, not off-topic, it's on topic, and so it's aligned. So there's an ISV out there that I was talking to. They have a solution that is built on, the Dynamics apps, a range of them. But what it does, it has a connection through to Azure that drives a lot of Azure consumption. We're talking about potential in the millions of dollars of Azure consumption. But the current model is, unless they sign those Azure credits through on their own profile, as in they don't kind of get that, where they have to make a commitment to consumption, let's say a couple of 100,000 a year, they're wanting to set all their customers up on their own Azure instance. But at the moment, there's no way for them to get recognition for driving, potentially millions of dollars of Azure consumption. Do you think there might be changes in the way recognition works in the future for like this example use case? There's a massive benefit to Microsoft and the consumption it's driving.
Absolutely, Mark. And what I would say is this, and I talk to many ISVs, and the other, and I'll correlate another challenge is that there are many ISVs that want to build on the Power Platform, and it could even be extending, as you mentioned, a first-party app. And with the Power Platform on Azure, some of the Azure components aren't being recognized or with the field sellers and others because they get recognized for the Dynamics piece of it, but not for the ACR. The other piece to it
What's
is,
ACR stand for? I'm not
sorry,
familiar.
the Azure consumed revenue.
Gotcha. Yep, great.
And to your point, and many of the other things that they build ancillary that may not be driven on the Power Platform, but they might have another service that operates on Azure or build up other instances on Azure that complements their Power Platform. They don't get credit for. So we recognize some of these challenges, and I don't have the perfect answer for you today, but there are some new changes coming that I can tell you that will be occurring, and so stay tuned on that front. And again, we're moving so fast, and not only with product launches and go to market opportunities for ISVs, it's an extreme focus across Microsoft for us. That I would say that you're going to see a ton of new programs coming to help ISVs as well as on this front. As you mentioned, we do recognize this challenge and look to address it very soon.
Fantastic. So I probably should have started with this, but like, how big is the potential market opportunity for ISVs? Like, I assume that you've done a range of research over the next 2 to 5 years. You're bound to have IDC reports, things like that. How big is this kind of I've just seen a report recently showing that, Power Apps for low code dev is now, top right corner of Gartner. And so what are the type of figures that you see are the potential explosion in this line of business application arena that could kind of fit itself perfectly on the Power Platform?
Yeah, so the business application market, is a tremendous financial opportunity for ISVs as it is for Microsoft, which is why we continue to double down in this business. And you hear Satya and others talking about this as, the third cloud at Microsoft. It's got a total addressable market. I think this number was, 2018, but, around $400 billion and an annual market growth of 20%. And with Microsoft Dynamics growing, roughly around 50%, we're well 2.5 times over what the market is going. So if you make your bet on the Power Platform and Dynamics, you have the opportunity to grow at the same rate, if not higher, than even Microsoft is growing. So the opportunity is huge. In terms of projections, who knows? I've seen, $1 trillion, and it explodes once you start talking about digital transformation, even as you go outside the lens of business applications. So I think, I think the answer is that the opportunity is huge, and you see Microsoft making the big investment in it, and I think that should be an indication with the rate of growth that we have is that we're a good platform and a good engine to help hook your wagons to in terms of being a part of the train moving forward.
Awesome. Listen, one of the things I'll always like to get for the show and leave in the show notes is links to resources. So take it, there's a bunch of resources. In fact, by the time this show goes live, I'm expecting there'll be even new resources come. Can you send me a bunch of links so we can make sure that those ISVs out there that want to kind of see, even stuff we've already talked about around, the build, connect, extend, and that stream, if you can send those through, that would be awesome. And I'll probably close with this final question before we get on to such things as my if you like, quick fire questions. No, actually, I'm going to ask a few things on Dev Center. But tell me, there's a lot of SIs out there that have been working on, in various industry sectors for a long time, and the concept of IP harvesting. So, as in we're talking about legally, that they own their IP to what they have. Those businesses I've never seen effectively really create ISV solutions that are coming out of the SI. But do you think there's an opportunity for them to really kind of spin up new business units that specifically focus on creating IP that actually, in other words, sell it as a product rather than sell the services that wrap around that?
Yeah, so this is a good question, and we've been working with SIs for years to try to build repeatable IP for industry, and some of them have done an okay job at it. They've built good IP, but in terms of making it repeatable, I just don't. I have not seen it, and it's not because they can't build the IP. But their whole business is and their how their P&L, everything else, and the whole company work is all around the services piece. So in terms of implementation, it's not about something that they can replicate. It's around something to solve a client's need. And so their whole business model isn't conducive to that sort of thing. It's funny, back in my call center days, I would go into call centers, and this is, back in the early 2000s early 2000s. And you go into a call center, and they ran their call center just the way their business. You'd have a cruise ship. There's one here in Seattle that they ran exactly their call center when they got a request from a customer, and they'd fax down the information to the people downstairs, just as and the same way as a retail would work. They ran it like that. So it's interesting. I think a SI would have to really transform to be able to support the repeatable IP, and that's why it's important, I think, for ISVs to mature their IP and work with the right SIs, because that ISVs can really provide value to the SI by packaging that repeatable IP for those industries. And so I just haven't seen anybody really
Me too.
do it well yet. I know a lot of created IP. It's not to say they can't. It's just not
Yep.
what they're really good at.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, I know you'll know a bunch about dev centers, and I've heard whispers of these from time to time, but can you explain what dev centers are and what's the purpose of dev centers and who can access them?
Sure. I'll make it really simple. So Dev Centers is a program that we established that is a collection of some of our top SIs and regional SIs that do really good work that we've vetted, we've interviewed. They have to follow a bunch of things that as a part of that agreement. They have to participate in the community. They have to speak at events. They have to they have to be vetted. They have to be certified. All those different types of things. And then, and what we did this for, I'll just take a sidebar on this, is most ISVs that are new to Dynamics, new to the Power Platform, when they come in and we do an architecture session and they realize that, wow, this technology is amazing. We want to make our bet on this platform, but we don't have a lot of Dynamics experience. We don't have a lot of developers that understand the platform really well. It would be quicker as a time to market if you guys had somebody you could direct us to that actually had engineers and developers that have experience in working with ISVs to go build it for us or do the integration for us. Before we would just cast a broad net out to all SIs. So we started thinking, hey, maybe what we should do to help scale out our solution architecture help is say, look, if you have a need and you're in a certain geography and you want, whether it be F&O experience, Business Central, whether it's customer engagement, historical CRM, or it's building natively in the Power Platform, who are the best partners I should go talk to go build these new scenarios? We would have a list for them, and we could provide them those names and do an introduction to them. There is a Dev Center link out on the website. It's both on AppSource as well as on our partner pages. That talks about the Dev Center. We have, I think we have 12 today and expanding. We're not ending with that. We have them all over North America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, LATAM, APAC, Australia. And they're split up also by what they do really well. So you can actually go on the website and get referred to one right from the website, or you can also reach out. You can reach out to me as well, davidp@microsoft.com, and I can send you that information as well.
Awesome. And once again, I'll get you to flick me those links so we can make sure they're in the show notes. People can jump straight to them. Okay, let's get on to some quick-fire questions to wrap up. It's been a very interesting conversation. First of all, what's your best purchase under $100? Not allowed to be food, not allowed to be drink.
It's not allowed to be food?
No. And it doesn't need to be recent, right? It could be back in time.
So I'll give you one. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is my sentimental one, but it plays into food. And it was a lot of money for me at that time, but I made the choice to do it, was paying the dinner bill for the first date with my future wife. She's now my wife of,
now that is
18
awesome.
years, but that was the best money I spent, because had we not gone out and I hadn't spent the last $80 I had to take her out, we might not be together today.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, and
Really,
I got to
really
say
good
one
answer.
more. And
Yeah,
I'm a
okay.
bit of a precious metal guy, and so I believe silver today is a really good buy at its current ratio relative to gold. So I buy silver.
Interesting. Interesting. That's, yeah, insightful. What's one thing on your bucket list that hasn't been checked off yet?
Take my family to a American football NFL Super Bowl, preferably
Wow.
the Seahawks. I missed that
Yeah.
opportunity years ago because my youngest was too young, but I've never been to a Super Bowl. Football is a love and passion of mine, so I would want to take my family and go.
Nice. Nice. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't sweat or worry about the small stuff. I'd say always look at the positive and opportunity in any obstacle or adversity.
Nice. Nice. Who do you recommend as a guest on a future show? From within your world of influence, and particularly targeting these ISV type listeners. Any recommendations?
Yeah, so I would recommend my boss, Steven Guggenheimer. Googs is a 26, 27-year veteran of Microsoft,
Wow.
been a corporate vice president for a very long time. He ran our ISV and partner program when it was DX before. He ran it globally across the world. And because Dynamics and the Power Platform has been such a critical focus of the company, they put Steve in charge to drive this new team, making a big investment in the Power Platform and in the business application group. And he'll have a ton of insights. There's so many things positive changing,
Yeah, yeah.
so many investments we're making for ISVs. I think he'd be great to have on the show next.
Awesome. Awesome. David, it has been great to have you on the show. Before you go, if people want to connect with you online, where can they find you across the social channels?
On Twitter, it's at Pennington03. That's PENNINGTON 03. Quite active. And you can always reach out to me on email, davidp@microsoft.com.
Hey, thanks for listening. ISVs, feel free to get in touch. Share your stories, collaborate, or maybe you need mentoring to take you to the next level. Please reach out on any of the social media platforms, NZ365 Guy. And don't forget to subscribe now to NZ365 Guy and get the latest updates on our free mentoring challenging happening mid-year. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/95. And until next time,